any work that he did that reflects his religion?
In the way in which Catholic painters in the Renaissance period painted the Madonna, the Virgin again, again. He never did that. That wasn't his particular thing. Certainly, I don't think virgins were his particular interest. Hello guys, welcome back to Hispanophiles Travel in Spain with only half a brain. This is the podcast equivalent of a drunken 2am snog with Penelope Cruz inside Razzmatazz. On today's episode, today's surreal episode, you could say, we'll be exploring the mind, the grind and that cute behind of Salvador Dali, one of the 20th century's most celebrated and vilified painters and artists. But first, it's time to meet our hosts, and something's a little bit different. I've got two new faces next to me. Girls' night in. How are we doing, ladies?
Hello.
Hello. So happy
We're
to be here
a
today.
little bit nervous by the sound of it.
I guess so. Maybe a bit more about my English, but...
Oh, do you not have to worry about that?
Same. I was worrying
okay.
about this as well. Yeah.
But they love the German accent, you know?
Do they?
I don't know.
Guys, introduce yourself, please.
My name is Ilvi. I am from Carinthia, and you all don't know what Carinthia is. So it's in Austria. But if you say Austria, most of the people think about kangaroos, so also not kangaroos.
That's actually
It's like next to Germany, guys. Yes.
Germany light.
And I'm in
basically.
Barcelona because I don't know what to do with my life.
Oh,
That's
welcome.
how people end up
like
here.
all of us.
Yeah.
Like all of us, Ilvi. Like all of us.
And like all of us, lost in Barcelona, at some point we have to appear on a podcast. So
That
welcome.
is
It's good to
correct.
have you.
Perfect.
How do we know each other, Ilvi?
Oh, we live together actually.
We did, yeah. What an amazing time that
It was so beautiful, my
yeah.
Great. So I will introduce myself as well. My name is Jessica, and we do actually now live together.
Oh, we do indeed. I've got the alpha female of the house sat next to me.
Yes, she is.
Don't reveal that now,
The
guys.
flat mom, Jessica.
Yeah, but I'm really happy to be here because it's a project that I really support, and I'm excited for today.
What's been your favourite episode so far then, Jessica? Of all the thousands of episodes you've seen, which has been your favourite one?
I would say the second episode I enjoyed the most.
Good choice. What was the most interesting fact in the second episode that really shocked you?
James? I can't say. I can't remember. Honestly, in Barcelona, so many things are happening where we are at this point or at this moment that I can't remember most of them.
Very good answer. And night out tonight, I believe, no? We're going out with the ladies?
Yes.
Okay, so we're just, this is the pre-drinks.
This is
basically,
the
guys.
start.
I'm going straight to bed after this.
Yeah, sometimes this must be as well. Like, no, actually, I've been this weekend to some festival here in Barcelona, and it was a very Catalan festival that is happening every year.
Okay, so free entry, I'm guessing.
Not really, but it was worth the money, let's say. And I went with a lot of good friends and was really amazing. There were a lot of nice artists, also from outside of Catalonia, but also some Catalan bands. I recommend to everyone. It's happening every year. It's called Guia Festival, and it's not advertising I'm doing here. I really enjoyed the festival.
But they should pay you.
They
They should
should.
pay me. They should pay
They
both
should pay
of us.
both of us.
Yeah, and together we are going to make lots of money and become famous for the podcast. Yeah?
But it's cool. That would be cool, yes.
But music-wise, what sort of festival was it?
It was more a rock festival, actually.
All right.
There were some electro swing artists involved that I like personally a lot, but also some more quiet, only acoustic acts. But generally it was more rock. So for everyone that is interested, go there, enjoy. And take care of your phone.
Is there a story there, Jessica?
There is. Yeah, as we all know, living here since 4 years now, personally me, I realized that Barcelona is a super nice city and a city to enjoy your life and a lot of fun. But it's also a city where you need to be careful and take care of your personal belongings. So living here, my phones got stolen 2 or 3 times already. I stopped counting. So no, but it's fine. Just take care, guys.
Everybody in comments, please say how much sympathy you have for Jessica losing her phone.
Yes, please.
Let's start coming with.
That would help me.
Oh.
But also, I recommend to get an insurance for the phone, and especially like important personal belongings, it makes sense to get one. Yeah, I didn't have, so.
Smart advice in this episode.
Will you get an insurance on your next one?
Yes, I already
Yeah?
checked insurances today, and I will definitely get one. Definitely, this is happening now, so I won't cry next time over it.
Oh, and that's why we call her Mama of the Flat. She's always the one with the best advice.
More or less, yes. And what about you, Illy? What have you been doing?
I've been to the beach because I couldn't work.
Nice.
Couldn't
That's a
work
good
on the
idea.
weekend because my computer was broke. And then I just went out partying.
It's something I
Did
like.
you lose any phones?
No, I never
Good.
lose a phone or got anything stolen.
Did you
It's-
steal any
Actually,
phones?
Of course, that's why. Okay, maybe I lost some phones, but if I lose a phone, I just steal Jessica's phone. So I have a new one, you know?
So that was actually you, Illy.
Of course. I was there at the festival.
Together, you claim money back on the insurance. Yay!
Yay!
This isn't about being
this
nice.
is
This
a
is about
business.
scamming the
Actually, it
fucking
is.
capitalist
Actually, it
system.
The capitalist system.
No,
Is that a word?
bullshit.
Bullshit.
Actually, that's worth a try.
You
I'm
know what's
joking,
not?
of
You know
course.
what's worse than planning corporate fraud?
Yeah?
It's going on a podcast and telling the world that you're going to plan corporate fraud. That's maybe
That is
not
true.
such a smart idea, I would say. I mean, I've never done it. Wink, wink. But if I was, I would never publicly
Yeah.
announce my plans to commit fraud
It's true.
on such a big ass podcast as this one.
Maybe we can just cut it out later. And were there already a lot of tourists this weekend?
Oh,
I guess so,
so
no?
many people on the beach.
Yeah.
It's the summer.
The summer is here.
It's my first summer in Barcelona, guys.
Yeah, true.
Well, it's good to
I'm
have you.
dying
I'm
because
enjoying.
it's f***ing hot, but otherwise, it's nice, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm guessing you've walked past the nudist beach at some point.
Yes,
I'm not. Jessica. I didn't say visit. I said walk past.
I walked
I wasn't
past
being a
for
pervert
sure.
like Dali.
I was kinda, I don't know, I'm not used to that. I was kinda disturbed. I saw so many dicks that day. And we just wanted to walk past. And then I said, that's a perfect spot to
That's
lay
a perfect
down.
penis.
And then the guy I was walking there with, he said like, look closer, Ilvi. And there was like a guy with his legs spreaded out.
Yeah,
And
they are free
we
there.
Saw
Yeah.
everything. We saw everything.
However, for a German,
However, in east of Germany,
paradise.
they're very used to it. Very used.
You're very used to it?
In the east of Germany, this was something very common. And I'm not born in these times, just to make that also clear. Usually, people relate Eastern Germans with nudist beaches and nudist
Yeah.
pools and nudist everything.
You weren't born at the time, but were you born naked?
I was born indeed naked, yes.
Okay. So you can relate on some level at least.
I can relate. At a certain level, yes, I can say.
I should say, guys, Mystique and Silvano not here this week. That's why we've got our two fabulous guests hosting. Silvano is still entertaining his family who are visiting, and Mystique has gone back to Norway to have her own little summer vacation. Let's move on to our regular segments, guys. And because Mystique and Silvano aren't here, I asked you in advance to prepare some incredible content for us. Should we start with the news story of the week, Spanish news? Jessica, what news have you got for us this week?
So, first of all, I read a few news about Shakira, which is a big topic in Spain.
Shakira?
Shakira.
Shakira.
And the whole topic with Kike, and then now she's sued for tax. Actually, not sure how this is called in English. I
Evasion?
read the news. Yeah, something like this. Like she
Yeah.
violated the tax law in Spain, but she's now in Colombia. So this for me was super interesting. But I also read some news that are actually interesting, I think, for the whole world at this point, and that we notice nowadays, or especially in the summer in Barcelona, a lot, because it's so freaking hot that we can barely sleep, and it's because actually it's the hottest summer ever. I read some very interesting but also sad news about a one of the biggest lagoons in Spain dried out completely. And why this was so interesting for me was because, and I hope also for our listeners, every year there's up to 20,000 flamingos. Like these small little pink animals, you know?
Yes.
And you can imagine why I love them, because they're
Pink.
rosa or pink. And that's why. And then this year, as the lagoon dried out for the super heat in the south of Spain, like close to Malaga. They cannot come there for their yearly parade that it is. I would say they do.
Migrations,
And
maybe.
exactly. And so now they have to find another lagoon to go to, and it's very sad because it's of course for the drought that is happening now in especially the south of Spain. It's really crazy, and I'm wondering where this will lead us, or where this will lead to, because I hear that from all kind of parts in the world, and especially in the south of Spain, it's very sad, and we're affected from this. So I don't know what to do about it, because I'm a bit sad that no flamingos are there, because they're pink.
Everybody in comments, can we get a message saying, "Oh, poor flamingos"?
Anyone that shares their affection also for these animals, let me know as well.
We've lived together for 2 years. This is the first time you've told me that you have an affection for flamingos.
There is some
We
things
just
you
know
don't
about
know.
the guinea pigs.
It's also true.
When I went in the flat, when I moved into the flat, there were like stickers of guinea pigs everywhere, and there was like, who likes guinea pigs in here? It's
I
Jessica.
can confirm.
Thankfully, no guinea pig shit. Just cockroach shit.
But I'm a lover of every animal.
Why don't you have flamingos?
Almost every animal. Flamingos, good question. Because they don't come to Spain anymore because the lagoons right out. No, but honestly, it's interesting news. Because there's also a lot of water missing. We even feel it in Barcelona at this point.
Because the showers are turned off at the beach.
True,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, and other things as well. Like we don't have the magic fountain, for example. It's not running the whole summer. That is usually like a huge tourist attraction.
In Plaza de España?
Yeah.
Is one? Yeah.
And they shut it off
True.
to save water. So, and I hear it also from friends that in some regions they cut the water completely, like from flats, rented flats, whatever, throughout the whole night.
Really?
Yeah, I hear that actually today. Like, we spoke about this. at
Can't
work.
be legal, but
I don't know in how they. I think it can be actually. There is probably some higher power environmental law that they can apply, the government or certain states, that might make it possible. I'm not sure, but it's crazy.
we should say for legal reasons, we do not know the status of Shakira paying taxes in Spain. Jessica, what a great segment. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. It was also very
Fantastic.
interesting for me, honestly.
Shall we move on to another segment? It's time to brush up our Spanish vocabulary, guys. I would ask Mystique, but she's not here. So the burden falls onto the beautiful shoulders of Ilvi. What have you got for us?
So, what should I prepare for the podcast? And he was like, yeah, just look up who Salvador Dali is and prepare your favorite Spanish word. And then I started thinking, I don't even have a Spanish word. Maybe it's because my Spanish is bad as fuck. But then I started asking people in my surroundings, like, what is your favorite Spanish word? And I came up with some things. I start with the first one. It's a very basic vocabulary, I would say. It's esperanza. Esperanza?
Esperanza?
That's a nice word.
It's hope. The next one, I think, is even funnier because we have a vocabulary for that in Austrian, but not really in German. And I don't even know if there's a word for that in English, but there is a word for that in Spanish. And it's
Which
chapuza.
Chapuza?
It's like in Austrian, it's push. If you repair something to the level where it's repaired and it kind of works, but it's not good working or good looking, and I think that explains the whole situation in Spain.
So how would
una
people
chapuza.
use that?
I don't know.
This would be interesting, no? To find out.
I can use it in Austrian because we were like he made push.
So maybe a good example would be
It's
our
push.
toilet a few weeks ago.
Let's not
The
speak
whole-
One
about
of the idiot
flat.
flatmates invited some friends around. Someone broke the damn toilet flush, and we had to do a chapuza and fush to get it to work so the water could move.
Yeah.
But it was a bit of what we would call a faff in English to
Yeah.
work.
Maybe.
Chapuza.
Yes. I think you pronounce it differently. I think
Can you
chapuza.
spell it?
CHAPUSZ.
Okay.
Chapuza.
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 Una
It's
chapuza.
chapuza.
I didn't know
Una
this one.
chapuza. Never heard of that.
Mm.
Yeah, and it's
Interesting.
very funny because it's basically just a word in
Triple
Austrian as well. So, yes.
It's really cool. I
If
think
you
you're
prepare
right.
Outstanding.
something just to this level where it works, but it's not working good or anything.
Yeah.
And I think that's like the whole Handwerker,
Yeah.
construction
Construction worker.
Yes.
Labourer.
the construction worker and labor guys do it
Yeah.
in Spain. So I got the old flat. If something looked ugly, it could be anything. A guy came and painted over it. with
Now
the
I get it.
fucking
Now I
white
get
paint.
it. Yeah. So they kind of fix it, but they also don't really fix
Yeah,
it.
they
no?
don't really fix it. They
Okay.
just put something over it that it
This was a good
kind of
description.
works.
Fixing a hole in the wall by putting paper over it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
something
yeah,
like
yeah,
this.
yeah.
Yeah.
And a chapuza.
And that nobody would in Germany would ever do that, you know? That's
Yeah.
a really Spanish thing.
That's why maybe this word doesn't exist.
And the last one is very cool. I think it's not Spanish, but it's Catalan.
Mm-hmm.
And it's Sushi Wayne.
Oof.
Sounds like a Chinese restaurant.
It
Yeah.
sounds like Chinese, and I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, so I put an audio of it. I am prepared, guys. So,
Sushi wajan and sushi wedge.
sushi wesha
Sushi
is
and
the
sandwich.
verb for it.
Okay.
And sushi wedge is the noun for it. Sorry.
And what does that mean?
Like when you're in the forest, just close your eyes and imagine the situation. You're sitting in the forest, closing your eyes, and there are like the leaves, and the wind goes slowly into the leaves, and then you hear the sound of the leaves. And that's sushi wedge. Sushi wedge.
It's really interesting.
That's beautiful, isn't it?
Catalonian forest ASMR, basically.
Yeah, basically. Can you put in could you put in the sound of it right now? In your edit, that's not it.
Actually, I'm feeling in the woods now and thinking about the leaves and this word.
Okay, that's are my words.
Best vocab segment we've ever had.
Oh,
Thank
yeah.
you very much, Ilvi. Love it.
I did my research, guys.
Mystique is going to have to up her game, I think, with this segment. Shall we dip into our main segment, my main talking point of the episode?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah. Guys, we're going to play a short game
Oh.
of word association. Woo!
What is that?
It's where I give you a word, and you guys have to give me the first word that you associate with it. And you'll see why we're
Cool,
doing
though.
this shortly afterward.
Okay.
Are you ready to play?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. The first word is surrealism.
Salvador Dali.
I'm thinking about art. The first thing that comes to my mind is art.
Okay. Art, very good. Salvador Dali might be a bit cheating, but I'm going to accept it for the time being.
Yeah. This
The first word that came up to my mind, James.
If the second word you say is Salvador Dali, I'm going to exclude that one. You get one Salvador Dali card.
Salvador
in this
Dali in my
game.
head.
What would you like for dinner, Ilvi? Salvador Dali.
Yes.
Word number 2. Mustache.
French. It's actually true.
Can I say Salvador? I can't say that.
You can't say Salvador
You
Dali.
can. No.
Okay. What are we thinking about now?
French.
I'm not even lying. It's the first thing coming to mind. Also, actually, a bit of Italian, but more.
Okay,
Just
are we just
French.
abusing nationalities here?
Okay, you guys, you know what came up to my mind? It's not a word, but it's a trend back in 2012 when everybody was wearing those weird shirts with the mustache on.
Ah, yeah. See?
Okay.
That's coming up to
Yeah.
my
I
mind.
love the artistic interpretation of the game. Very good. Ilvi's getting into the spirit here. So.
Yes.
Number 3 is a bit more unorthodox. Melting clocks.
Camembert. And I will explain that after.
Oh, Ilvi's done her research. High five on the ASMR high five. Camembert,
I
also
can keep
French
up to
link,
the-
French link.
No. But I want to know what this is about later.
You will. But I need to know your answer, Jessica.
really
a
can,
melting clock.
To be honest, like for a melting clock, nothing comes up in my brain. I never. Melting clock. What could that be? It's a clock that melts. Well, it's probably some.
Did
The
you
I-
Google Salvador Dali?
No, because I'm now here for the podcast and get all information directly from
Oh, she's here to
James.
learn. Okay, the idea of word association, you just say the first thing comes to mind. So don't think about it, Jessica. I'm going to try again.
Okay.
Melting clocks, go.
Rouen. It's a city in France.
Wha-
Jessica with her French thing.
It has a huge clock. That's what actually was the first thing I thought about. It has a huge clock, like a watch, whatever, in the center of the city, and it looks like it's melting.
Final one. Quite simply, Salvador. First thing comes to mind.
Dali.
I was too afraid to say that because you said I can't say it twice.
But he didn't say I cannot.
It was your turn.
Well, Salvador Dali, one of Spain's and Europe's most successful painters ever, and a key figure in 20th century surrealist movement. Surrealist movement, the way in which artists use their creativity to explore the contents and depths of the unconscious mind. Indeed, you can think of it as modern art meets Freudian psychological thought. Shall we start with or maybe do you want to give me what you already know? I think Ilvi's done some research.
I did my A levels in art history.
A whole 2 years ago, ladies and gentlemen.
Wow. That's cool.
I don't know a lot about it anymore, but I know something.
Should we go through notes and then you
Go
add
through your
anything?
notes. If I know
Yeah,
anything,
that would
I
be
add it.
cool.
Okay. Jessica's busy on Snapchat or whatever it may be. Thank you for...
I'm actually, but
Being in
don't tell
the room.
anyone, Googling Salvador Dali. Yes, there's pictures. And that's where I get, of course, the mustache.
Yes.
And to be honest, like, what I can tell you is there is one of his most famous paintings.
Yeah.
And my parents have that at home. I just realized.
Oh, very good.
It's quite cool. It's super surreal, actually. And I knew that it's from him. I forgot about this one, but it's at my parents' home, so.
Well, we have here a printout of it that we're going to discuss
Perfect.
a bit later
let's
on.
go.
So, okay, so born the 11th of May 1904, the same year that my football club Hull City was established. Fun fact for you there. Salvador Domingo Felipe Jacinto Dali Dominic, the Marquess of Dali y Pujol, was born in Figueres town of Girona province here in Catalonia.
It's here,
Catalan.
no?
It is indeed,
Yeah.
not too far away, Figueres. Not too far from France, so Jessica was kind of tangentially correct with her word association of France. Very long name, and the fact that he was a Marquess of Dali y Pujol gives hint to the fact that he was of a privileged upbringing, very middle class, with aristocratic heritage, if not of aristocratic status himself. His father was quite well to do, as his family, but his father was quite a stern man, said to be abusive during his childhood. And very harsh on Salvador Dali. His mother was one of the people he was closest to in his life, and his relationship with his mother was very strong. She died when he was 16, and he described it as the greatest blow of his life. So one of the key episodes in an upbringing which led to a very disturbed mind and a lot of repressed feelings and emotions inside him, which manifested itself in a lot of his work. Also a very Catholic upbringing. Now this...
And also, I
You
need
can.
to add something. His brother was born right before him, and he died. And the parents then always said he's a reincarnation of his brother. So he was always very connected with dad, and he really had,
Wow.
yeah.
I really wonder how you know these things. I mean, it's so interesting.
Very good. And do you know what his brother's name was?
No, I don't know.
That's so
I don't remember names ever.
They told Salvador Dali that he was a reincarnation of his previous brother, and they named Salvador Dali after his brother who
Oh,
died.
that makes sense.
By the way, explain to me. So his brother died before he lived.
Yes,
like when
his
he was
brother
a child.
died,
like-
I think, in August of 1903 or something like that. 9 months before Salvador Dali was conceived. They lost their previous son, Salvador.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so very distressing for the
That's
parents.
interesting.
And
I
they
didn't
told
know.
Salvador Dali that you are the reincarnation, the second birth of your brother.
Wow.
Yeah, what would that do to a young man's mind?
Yes,
Would be,
exactly.
like a bit disturbing.
Yeah. A lot of things come from childhood, so.
Indeed. And he was raised very Catholic, perhaps a surprise to people who know more about his romantic life, which we will discuss very shortly. but he was indeed a Catholic. So you've got a combination of some key childhood traumas and some very odd decisions by his parents, a lot of which would have placed either pressure or guilt and blame upon Salvador's mind at a young age. A Catholic upbringing, which again emphasises guilt and also a lot of emotional repression, certainly sexual repression, and he was also extremely introverted and shy growing up. Again, a surprise to people who look at how bizarre and erratic his behaviour came in adult life that also formed a basis of his career in the media, but someone who really struggled to express themselves and also struggled with confidence. And it's said that his desire and his inability as a young man to express himself effectively was one of the reasons why he invested so much in not just art but exploring different ways to make very alternative art.
Probably. It makes sense though.
Indeed. The final thing to mention of his early upbringing was his prodigious talent at painting and the visual arts. From the age of 14 he is said to have painted, and unlike many modern artists who try to cover up a distinct lack of skill and talent with just weirdness and random ideas and it's fighting the system, this guy had the ability to really, really paint, sculpt, draw very, very well. His father loved the arts and he actually supported financially Salvador Dali's young career. It was at the age of 17 in which his father, I think, paid for a first exhibition of Salvador Dali's artistic endeavours as a young man in what is now the Figueres Museum of Salvador Dali, that building. It's very famed in Figueres. Otherwise, his father did pay for tutoring, artistic pieces from other artists, resources, books, whatever it may be, from other leading painters at the time, to encourage his son's pursuit of an artistic career as much as possible. He also had a younger sister, 2 years younger than him, who was probably Dali's closest relationship, excluding maybe Gala, his wife, which we'll come to. But as Salvador Dali's career became more and more obscure in the light of political statements and whatnot, his relationship to his sister grew a lot weaker as time grew on. But eventually, as all people in his situation and with his talent set do, he went to study fine arts at the San Fernando Royal Academy of Fine Arts in Madrid, I believe at the age of 18. That would have been in 1922. His contemporaries liked him. He was a popular guy, but again seen as introverted and notoriously bad at women as well. His tutors noted his extraordinary talent, and he very quickly became one of the leading Cubist painters in Madrid. Cubism...
what is this? I wanted to ask.
Cubism is the style most closely associated with Pablo Picasso.
Aha.
It's like all cubes and shapes and stuff like that. You draw with that kind of stuff, yeah.
It's impressive how you're so knowledgeable in art. I like it.
Not that much.
It's cool. Interesting.
Ilvi's being modest, I think. What, can you tell us more about Cubism? I don't know that much myself.
Oh, I just know from art school, kind of. It's also like a movement against the realism after the First World War, because after the First World War it was all very strict, and the people made anti-art movements by creating art such as Cubism and Surrealism, who was totally different from the art they did till then. And that's also what the Nazis in Second World War forbid, because they wanted the realistic art back. So
Wow, that's
that was
interesting.
Cubism. Cubism is like with all forms and shapes, and like Pablo Picasso drew.
Pablo Picasso's Cubist portraits would take somebody's face but deliberately distort it, deliberately make it ugly or impossible or cartoonish or add 17 eyes or something.
Yeah, also like drawing like a face from one side with like 5 eyes and totally unrealistic things like that.
So Dali was doing kind of the same at some point? Or?
Dali was, at the beginning, yes, he was inspired by this. It's a good point what you said about the Nazi regime, yes. Right-wing totalitarianism, lover of everything purity, order, conformity, hated Cubism for the exact reason you said, because it being something that likes to explore and play around with things deliberately in a way that makes them ugly and provocative, make complete sense that the Nazis would, just despise it. And Franco probably himself as well. Yes, it being in the 1920s, I believe, with Picasso as its head, a leading anti-art, I guess you could say, movement in Europe. This was something that did inspire Dali greatly at the beginning. But his talent was so prodigious, and he was actually aware of it, Dali. He wasn't one of these people who was very modest about his talents. Even though he was shy, he was very aware how talented he was. And what he actually did, he dropped out of art school in 1926 as a 22-year-old, saying that his teachers were not good enough at art to be able to judge his work. So he basically said,
Oh.
you guys...
You need to have some confidence, huh?
Well, yeah. Big energy right there, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, but I also want to add something, because we talked about Pablo Picasso for a short period of time. But I know Pablo Picasso is not the topic, but we're in Barcelona. And we know the Arc de Triomphe. And this was actually the entrance door of the World Exhibition, where
Global
Picasso put his picture Guernica.
Here
in Barcelona, yes.
I never knew that.
And the whole thing where you go after the Arc de Triomphe, there was like all the pictures of all the artists around the world. The topic of this exhibition was like modernization of the world, and I think also industrialization.
Industrialization.
And everybody draw like happy pictures and stuff like that. But Picasso actually draw like all the people dying in the war in Spain, because that was his outcome from industrialization and modernization of the world.
Wow.
Yes, and that was also like a cubist picture, a very cubist picture, a very famous cubist picture.
Guernica.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
Yeah,
It's
like
in the Prado, I think, in Madrid.
Yeah, that should be in Madrid, right?
Have you been?
I haven't been.
It is enormous.
It's like 10 times 10 meters.
It's massive.
Yes.
Yeah, it wouldn't fit in the ground floor of this building. It's ridiculous, but it is very, very impressive. So good knowledge. I didn't know that.
We should go.
We should go another road trip.
Yay!
A key
So Arc de
influence.
Triomphe.
A key influence of Dali, and he actually was quite close friends with Picasso. Picasso, indeed, noting that Dali had dropped out of school, he helped him with acquaintances, the resources, with people he put in contact with, and Dali's artistic career flourished from there. He left art school, didn't get some Starbucks job. Instead, he was making art, and he was successful very, very quickly. Other influences in his world, he studied the art movements emerging in Barcelona and Paris at the time. Impressionism and late Renaissance paintings also apparently are said to have influenced Dali quite a lot. Renaissance art, I don't think you can see that much in the intellectual, maybe you could say, construct of Dali's work. Again, Renaissance things tend to be religious at their core, if not focusing on the natural world, not in the surreal and imaginative and Freudian way that Dali looked at it. But apparently he was influenced quite a lot by Renaissance, and at least liked it before turning to Cubism a lot more in his 20s with Picasso, like we said. Another surprising influence in his work, the town of Cadaqués. So this is not far from Figueres, a coastal town very close to the French border, with a lot of rocky shoreline. And if you look at some of his early work in the 1920s and 30s, during the height of his surrealist era, when he painted The Persistence of Memory, which is the painting that you showed us that your parents have a copy of, you can see a lot in the background, a lot of kind of hard, rocky cliffs, shorelines, landscapes, whatever we call, that are said to be influenced by his walkings as a young man in a happy place, the coastline of Figueres. A particular contemporary of his, also surrealist, and I'm going to get this wrong because my French sucks, Yves Tanguy, I think is his name. Slightly older than Dali, but very similar work. If you Google Yves Tanguy...
Tanguy, probably, yeah.
Tanguy, yeah. Jessica's our French expert here. Yves Tanguy.
I don't know things about art, but about French language, I know.
Catholicism, did it influence his art? Appearingly not, even though maybe the fact that he felt so, we could say, Catholic doctrine maybe suppressed his ability to deal with complicated emotions, maybe led to an impulse to create art, we don't know. But two of the things that we definitely think quite clearly influenced his art, one was Freudian psychological thought, who we've discussed. So Sigmund Freud, you're all familiar with, the writer of The Interpretation of Dreams, a groundmark book in psychology, and the person who we think of when we think of the words ego, superego, and id. Yes, Freudian's complicated concepts about how things from the subconscious manifest themselves in everyday behaviour is believed to be a huge influence on what Dali tried to achieve in his art, in his artwork. And then post-World War II, A lot of artists in that time, as you said, Ilvi, try to depict unnerving, illogical scenes and use techniques to allow that unconscious mind to express itself, often as a consequence of trauma. And maybe we can have a look at some pieces. We can have a look at some examples, shall we?
Yes.
Okay. So we've got another game, boys and girls. We have here 4 printouts that I need to somehow cover the names of so you can't see them. And I'd like you to have a go at guessing what these would be called. Now, they've all got strange names and very unlikely names. I need you guys to once again think of the first. Stop trying to look at the name.
Yes, I hate that game because it's always like I know the names, but I never remember any names. So
Yeah. You've seen them probably before, but
Yes, yes.
it's the same.
Guys, what can you imagine this would be called? This is a Dali work right here.
I just read that name today, but it's like I don't know
Yeah.
anymore.
Shall we let
I think it's
Jessica
interesting
guess?
because it's what comes to people's mind when they don't know, when it's about art. For me, it would be like Timeless Desert or something.
Timeless Desert. I like it. I like it. So we've got Timeless Desert. Ilvi, care to have a stab?
Yeah, I have to go for a running time or something like
Running
that.
time. The Persistence of Memory.
Yeah.
So this is Salvador Dali's most accomplished, not his most highly valued. We'll get to one of those later on. But this is probably his most famous painting.
Persistence of
His Mona Lisa, his Guernica.
Mm.
Many people will look at it they will interpret it as a commentary on the natural decay of things over the course of time. However, it is said that he was inspired upon a picnic seeing
a camembert melting.
Really?
Yes.
How?
But he took back that statement,
Okay.
actually.
one thing to note about Dali during his career is he deliberately tried to be as obscure as possible when answering questions about his inspirations, his motivations, his objectives with art, and would give nonsense answers basically. So it's very difficult for people to posthumously look back and say, okay, he meant this when he said this, because he was such a contrarian so much
Yeah.
of the time. And again, is this a nature about how time slowly takes us and cripples us all as we get older, or is it just some dream he had about looking at some cheese he saw that day melting and saw a clock in it? We don't know. Round
It's
2,
very
shall we?
Interesting. I think they're all super interesting. The thing about art is, for me, when I think about Dali, I can understand where it's coming from based on his childhood, what you just told us before, that he's trying to confuse people by choice. But for me, the good thing about art is that everyone interprets a painting or whatever, some kind of piece of art themselves. Like it should be very freely interpreted, in my opinion. And that's the nice thing about art, no? So it's good to know what the artist thought about or how he was inspired. But even if we don't know, that I probably think Dali kind of tried to do, it's something beautiful because everyone interprets themselves.
Yeah.
I understand that, and certainly there can be value in somebody having a different interpretation of a piece of art. But I'm such a logical person; it
Yeah.
pisses me off when
Yeah.
it's not obvious what the purpose was, which is why I prefer literature to art, to visual art.
But
at
it's
least.
also with literature, it's like
True.
there's so many interpretations, possible interpretations. For example, if you read Kafka, he has he wrote some crazy
is
stuff, and you never know what he's trying to say.
Yeah.
Let's look at this next
What
one.
do you think this would be
Okay.
called? I think it's Eva Braun. No, it's
Jesus, it looks to me like Jesus.
I don't know that picture actually. How
I'd be very surprised if this was the most hellish, chaotic one I found while researching today. But
It's chaotic, yes.
Mm.
if you can give me a
Okay.
guess name,
I need to come up with a poetic title, so Jessica, you go first.
Yeah, I'm thinking.
is that the name of your?
I'm thinking if there's planes is in the if there are planes in the background, something like
Or birds. I think it's birds.
yeah.
Or it's bugs, because he had a weirdly obsession with bugs and insects.
Okay, so how is this called? How could that be called, Elvia?
I think
I'm going to take your next answer, guys. I want a guess.
Okay.
Channel your inner Dali. 3, 2,
the bridge to death.
the bridge to death. Bloody hell, that was dark.
Because in the background it's like The bridge.
Oh, I can see a bridge, yeah.
I
Yeah.
see the
I
bridge.
see the bridge.
I would have said something with women, but it's like I'm not sure if it's called like this, but suppression
The
of
bridge to women.
the bridge. The bridge to dead woman.
Oh,
A bridge to
damn.
dead woman.
Oh my
Charming.
god! So what is the actual name?
The hallucinogenic toreador.
Toreador.
Yeah.
What does toreador mean?
I don't know.
Toreador, maybe it means bridge.
Maybe it means bridge.
It would be.
Maybe
I
it means
was
bridge.
impressed by myself.
Okay. With this one, you don't have to be so outlandish and creative. I think you can guess this one. But this was the painting that he made and showed to his professors to say, you can't do something as good as that.
It's a still life, still living painting. Actually.
Is that again this
For me,
camembert?
it's
Like,
bread.
is that the cheese again?
It's not cheese. What did you say, Elby?
Bread.
Bread is bread is a word inside the title.
Okay.
What's it called, do you think?
Korb. What is korb in English?
Yeah?
Bread korb. What is korb?
Basket.
Bread basket.
Basket of bread.
That is what it's called.
Wow.
Basket of bread. Well done, guys.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, we are becoming art experts over here, aren't we?
Damn.
And this one is my favourite piece, purely because of the name. What do you think that's called?
Is that?
You're going to look what's happening down here. And what's happening here.
Yeah. I know that picture actually.
That is
It's
very
like-
sexual.
Yes, it is, and the name reflects
It
that.
was kind of inspired by Goya's picture, I think.
Are you Googling it, Jessica?
Yeah.
Don't Google it, that's not...
No.
That's not
I was
illegal.
checking somewhere else.
I don't know the title. I don't have any clue.
The confusion of humanity.
Oh, Jessica's getting the hang of this. No, it's not the
The
confusion of
girl
humanity.
sucking.
You are closer, Hilary. It is called The Great Masturbator.
This is not true.
That
this,
is that
this
is true.
must be a lie.
Google exactly that now, and you will
When
see
did
this
he
image.
publish this picture?
Oh,
which year?
that would have been in the 30s. I'm not sure. Can you Google that?
In the 30s, Jessica.
I mean, I believe you. I trust
Okay.
you. That
I don't want those cookies on my phone.
exactly that is true also.
Okay, so as we said, Dali quit school, quit studying art at the age of 22 in 1926, and went on to success quite quickly. He started experimenting with cubism quite a lot, as we said, playing around with shapes in his work, changing forms and things as much as possible, while also being very heavily influenced by Freudian thoughts. Painting was his mainstay, but he also explored different other mediums. Filmmaking, sculpture and photography, jewellery making, all these sorts of things. He also at one stage wrote a cookbook, apparently, which I've been told has been updated and re-released.
Was it good? The
Well,
book?
this is the thing. True to Dali's character, the recipes are very difficult to make and often include either impossible to buy or very expensive ingredients. So deliberately trying to be a troll,
It's useless.
even in the damn kitchen. You know?
Okay.
Even though I'm not sure how many contained camembert, but it's possible that they did.
It's
so
possible they're inside of this book, yeah.
Could be. The book might be made of camembert and have melting clocks inside as well. So, on the topic of films, he became a contemporary of Alfred Hitchcock as well, and he wrote the 22nd, I think, dream sequence of the film Spellbound. And in 1976, Dali wrote and directed the film Impressions of Upper Mongolia, an odd documentary about the search for a giant psychedelic mushroom. Very weird, and I've not seen it, but I've been told it is, again, the type of film that you can only understand and get any value from if you are under a psychedelic, hallucinogenic trip, basically.
In next podcast episode.
Could be. Some of his projects this time were more commercially successful. The Chupa Chups logo.
Oh, he did that.
He did indeed, yeah.
What?
Chupa Chups, the lollipops,
The lollipops.
with the kind of yellow and red.
I know.
yeah.
I know.
He
but
designed the
crazy
logo.
that he did that.
And he also mandated that, because you know the logo is always on the top of the lolly.
Yeah.
He said that has to be there for branding. So
Ah.
not just a pervert, also a good business mind on him as well. So
Oh.
he remained in Spain for the course of the 20s and 30s before moving to the US in 1940 when World War II broke out. He stayed in Spain for the duration of the Civil War, though I do not believe he actively fought. Might be wrong. If you know that, please do make a comment. It was this time in 1931 that he made his most famed masterpiece, The Persistence of Memory, of which Jessica's parents are a huge fan.
Yes.
The melting clocks, he wasn't just influenced by Freudian psychology and Cubism, he also took increasing interest in Einstein's work. Obviously, in the 1930s, Oppenheimer, Einstein, Rutherford, these scientists began to really understand the atomic model and the power of atomic fusion, atomic fission, all the rest of it. He found it fascinating, the fact that inside one particular atom, so much space exists between protons, neutrons, electrons, subatomic particles. And then when you look at some of the earlier 1930s works, you see a big flat landscape with a few individual items that could be very random, like a piano in the middle of a desert, whatever it may be, with nothing else nearby. That apparently is said to be influenced by the idea that a proton can be so far apart from an electron but still in the same atom, and he was obsessed by this. Yeah, very interesting. Also, well, again, seemingly at odds with his Catholic faith. He was a big consumer of science at the time.
Is there any work that he did that kind of reflects his religion, like the Catholicism? Or that includes it in a way that we could see it, basically?
It's believed that he didn't take it as an inspiration for producing art, even though, like we said, maybe the fact that he was kind of suppressed emotionally as a kid, maybe as a consequence of a Catholic upbringing, that led him to be such a prolific and such an exploratory artist. But he didn't paint in the way in which Catholic painters in the Renaissance period, for example, painted the Madonna, the Virgin again. He never did that. That wasn't his particular thing. And his sexual perversions, which is one of the last things I want to talk about because they're very interesting. Certainly, I don't think virgins were his particular interest. During this period, he wrote a film called The Age of Gold. Now, this was a surrealist film, and a screening of it was, again, this is a point that you mentioned, Ilvi. This was what you would now call cancelled. It was protested by right-wing fascists, the support of the Falangist Party here in Spain in the 30s, who disapproved of its message, of its artistic style, of its merit as art. They disrupted it, protested it violently, in the hope that it would discourage surrealism. It only emboldened them more to do what they were doing. And it was in the mid-30s where Dali became increasingly confident in using the human form and sexuality in his works, which introduces us to one of the main characters in the story, Elena Diakonova.
It's not his wife.
That was his wife,
Is it
yes,
not his wife?
who went by the name Gala,
Yeah, Gala.
even though her name was Elena. Born in Kazan in the Russian Empire, it would have been at the time. Gala Diakonova was, I believe, 10 years older than him. And they met, it was apparently in 1922, when a surrealist poet, a Frenchman by the name of Paul Éluard, I'm probably butchering that. Jessica, you know French better than I do. Paul Éluard, a surrealist poet, he was a huge fan of Dali. And his wife, Elena Diakonova, Gala, he allowed her to be Dali's muse, someone he painted. I believe also she eventually became his manager. And from 1929, I believe, the two had an affair. It would have been in 1934 that Dali married Gala, who became Gala Dali, and she decided to leave a marriage with a very successful French poet and a family with one child for this eccentric, crazy, shy, awkward Spanish painter, 10 years younger than her, with a big moustache. The story is even more fascinating because in 2011, the most expensive surrealist piece of art ever sold was sold for $22.4 million in a London auction. It is a Dali piece, and it is called A Portrait of Paul Éluard.
Really?
So the man whose wife Dali
stole literally,
is the subject of what his most successful painting of all time and the most valuable piece of art ever. No doubt that story contributes to its value.
Yeah, that is
I
true.
don't have a picture, but it's really damn good. You take a look now on your phone. I've got one word for that story.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Poets.
Paul Éluard. Portrait of Paul Éluard. I do not know how you pronounce it.
That's super interesting and also super crazy, I have to
Oh,
say.
you're about to learn more about Gala.
Okay,
so-
go on.
While doing this research, I watched a video that described Gala was everything that Dali was not. So he was awkward, shy, not very good at talking to women before he got fame, a little bit erratic. Gala was very sexually experienced, again 10 years older, Russian, and extremely confident in her body. One of the reasons why she became such a successful muse and model of the time.
Imagine somebody steals your wife and then that motherfucker draws a picture
Yeah,
of you.
and
Exactly,
it
that's
becomes
what I
his
was
most successful thing
thinking.
of all time, exactly.
Wow.
I was going to come to this a little bit later, but their relationship, they were together for a long time. However, they were probably the first high-profile polygamous couple of the modern era. Let's say post-Roman, for example. She had affairs all the time, with his knowledge. He allowed
With
it.
his knowledge.
He
Oh, yeah.
encouraged it. He often wanted to be there spectating, and he would masturbate while watching her with Tom, Dick, and Harry, and absolutely everybody. You know, he also engaged in premarital affairs with her consent, but it was more or less a one-way street in terms of how the traffic flowed. He really enjoyed having her fiddle around with whoever else took their fancy. So much so was he into this that I think in 1968 it was, he purchased for her a medieval castle, a medieval fortress in Catalonia, I don't know where exactly, that he permitted her to live in. And he made it so that he could only visit the castle to see her, that he purchased when he received handwritten letter with permission from her saying he would do so. That's how
He was very submissive.
Completely
he was
crazy,
very,
this guy, in my opinion.
very submissive. But the two did get on. They were married for a long time. It ended in, I would say, heartbreak posthumously in another way, but we'll get to that. In the 1930s, this is where his fame ballooned, thanks more than anything else, not to Gala, but to a US-based art dealer called Julian Levy, or Levy, I think his name was. It was in 1934 that Dali's work started to be published and circulated in the US art collection scene, most notably in New York, where his personality and odd antics and appearance made him as much as a star in the very rambunctious world of American entertainment, as much as his wild and lurid artworks themselves. They moved there. Gala and Dali first visited in the 1930s, but they moved there in 1940 to New York originally when they escaped the Second World War. New York was a huge attraction. He adored it, and he started to work a lot more in very commercially successful endeavours. He wasn't the sort of artist where he thought, I have to paint and that's it. He did many different, as we saw with the case of Chupa Chups, he worked in advertising, he worked with shopfront decoration, he worked with Alfred Hitchcock as well to produce parts of his films. Never said no to a good opportunity, and the money really came in. At his height, I think in this era, in the 30s and 40s, he was living on the equivalent in today's money of spending $500,000 US on his lifestyle per month.
Per month.
Wow.
Oi, oi,
Dali
oi, oi,
This
oi.
should be us.
Dali was balling hard in the post-war era. He really was dishing it out.
Wow, this is a lot. What even he spent that on? Like, I cannot imagine.
Well, he bought a medieval castle for his girlfriend that he was.
That
you
is true.
He didn't visit
Yeah.
without her consent.
Yeah.
He had a pet anteater. Did you know this?
No.
Do you know what an anteater is? It's a mammal. It's an animal probably the size of a dog. I think they live in Africa, and they eat ants.
Ah, they eat, yeah.
Ah,
Yeah.
Don't
That
know.
is that with the. He had a weird obsession with like
He-
insects
ants,
and
yes,
stuff
yeah.
like that.
He brought it to an interview one time, and he allowed the anteater to attack the journalist, to attack the presenter who was interviewing him.
He was crazy.
He was crazy.
Oh man.
He was a mad one.
Okay.
But he eventually returned to Spain in 1948, and this is when he kind of, I don't know if renewed is the right word, but he associated with Catholicism once again. He became part of the faith. I'm not saying he became a choir boy as such, but you know, he was known to be still kind of in some way engaged in the faith, if not going to church every single week. Certainly, that did not stop him sleeping around or encouraging all sorts of polyamory and perverted antics, let's say, some of which we'll come on to in a second. But coming back to Spain in 1948, this was the time during Franco's totalitarian regime, during the dictatorship, the right-wing dictatorship here in Spain. And this is probably one of the more lasting controversies, is he never publicly denounced Franco. As a matter of fact, at one stage, he did say he's the only intelligent man in politics. And this is a man who was responsible for the murder of tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people during the course of his dictatorship and repressed the media very, very heavily, and also, indeed, Catalan identity, Catalan language, the Basque language, all the rest of it. So this was one of several reasons that caused him to be denounced by Picasso, for example, and the other people in the Surrealist movement.
Also, another statement. Hitler kind of turns me on, he said.
No. I am shocked.
Yeah, that guy.
He used the Führer's face in many of his paintings.
But my
I
question
don't
is,
think
let's check that out. But my question is, do you think he maybe collaborated with Franco, for example, because he is from Spain, so that he got some advantages from, not speaking badly about him, let's say,
Yeah,
or
but
In
actually, Franco and the Nazis, they were totally against like art like that. You know?
yeah,
They actually
yeah.
banned it. So, but he still said statements. Maybe he wanted just to be controversial and say weird
could
stuff.
be.
That's a possibility. As we said earlier on, he was known for trying not to give clear and direct answers to questions when interviewed.
yeah.
So saying that he thought Franco was the most intelligent man in politics appears to me to be an example of him just being a loose
Yeah,
cannon, a
might
troll,
be,
whatever he may be.
actually.
Ilva, you made a good point. It wasn't in his interests, realistically, to live in a fascist dictatorship because he was an artist and very risque. It also, Franco was not exactly the sort of person approving of all these extramarital affairs and having sex with models, which Dali did quite a lot. So it's not clear what he would have benefited from supporting
Yeah.
Franco so publicly, apart from maybe being spared his life in the country where he lived.
Yeah, that's what I was
That's
thinking.
about
Something
it.
like
But
this.
it's not really the case, I think, that Franco was a particularly large fan of Dali. He maybe just tolerated him.
Okay.
And again, it helps totalitarian regimes to have big popular names in some way endorse their regime, live in their country, come back to
Yeah.
them. So that's probably about, and again, this is me speaking not as an expert historian. Anybody in comments who knows more than me, please feel free to share while being polite and civil. I can't say I know the full extent of the relationship between Dali and Franco, but that's it's not likely he was picking up a gun and killing Republicans and communists. But nevertheless, people still see him as a fascist stooge, as a right-wing sympathizer, far-right sympathizer, and it's difficult to find too many things that contradict that vote so clearly. He described himself as a monarchist anarchist, which again, in typical Dali style, makes no sense whatsoever. He believed that the ideal way to rule was a monarch having absolute power and people living in absolute freedom beneath that monarch. Completely paradoxical.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
No. But his weirdness didn't end there. Again, in his never-ending desire to find new ways to express himself that go against convention, one of his most famous quotes, which inspired an actual piece of sculpture which he made, was, in a restaurant, "When I order the lobster, why do you not bring me a telephone?" This led to, I think, $1 million piece, which was just a lobster glued to a telephone sold in the 1950s, I believe, but don't quote me on that, I'm not entirely sure. It said that the reason he did this was to challenge the meaning of certain images over others in conventional thought and pop culture, and therefore, asking the question, who decides why certain images in art would be more relevant than others? Why does a melting clock have so much scrutiny from experts, whereas a basket of bread is seen to be, it's just a boring still life piece? Who decides what makes it? So then again, why, when you were talking about ordering lobster in a restaurant, do you not therefore think of a telephone over, would you need butter, would you need sauce, whatever it may be? That's kind of the point he was often making with these deliberately nonsensical, controversial and odd answers, questions, responses, whatever it may be. Further controversy, one of them, again, was related to his sexual endeavours. Not all of them were consensual.
Oh,
In
really?
1945, he was introduced to the model Constance Webb, an American, I believe, and she agreed to model for him. She was very attractive in his eyes, and originally their relationship was very professional, but he did harbour fantasies of her, obsessions, interests, sexual desire, and that again he repressed, and being in a position where he did receive a lot of adulation from the media, it maybe went to his head, and one day when she was resting after having modelled, I think, nude for him, he jumped onto her stomach and he ejaculated all over her breasts, and then he decided to suckle from her. He decided to breastfeed.
There are a lot of details.
I'm speechless.
I'm
at
sorry?
this point.
But that's why I said it, because it is an odd anecdote to an odd man. She did not publicly come clean about what happened until after his death, but it's not the only example we have of him being sexually odd to women. Apparently one woman, I think this was when he was in his 20s, quite young, complimented his beautiful feet, which is an odd compliment in itself. And he proceeded, I think, to push her down and trample her, to stand on her, until a friend of his decided to pull him off.
Oh,
Yeah,
Wow, it's a very controversial person, in my opinion. No, like
He
after
is.
everything we heard, it's
he's
wow.
but his final years were sad. He did lose a lot of money. Gala, his Russian crazy wife, kind of became senile, and I think also provided him with a lot of medication for his growing Parkinson's disease. He developed really strong shakes in his arms, which ended his artistic career. He could not paint anymore from his 70s onwards. She died at the age of 87, I believe. He stopped painting at 76, having lost his muse, his one love of his life, and the main inspiration for most things he did, and became a bit of a recluse, living in the house that he once lived in, which is now the Figueres Museum to Dali, the one we mentioned earlier on, where his first exhibition was funded at the age of 17 by his father. Do you remember we discussed that?
Yes,
That's where he lived at the end of his life.
are
That's
we
where he's
making a road trip to very
exactly. I
where we're
wanted to
gonna
mention
make
this
the
as
road trip
well.
to. But he was a sad figure. He became increasingly paranoid and a bit delusional, not entirely knowing what was right or wrong, or indeed what was correct and what was false. And people took advantage of him so much. He lost all of his millions, effectively, living quite penniless in his last days. And a lot of people would put something in front of him to sign, and he would do it, thinking it was something legitimate. And that's how approximately 15,000 pieces of fraudulent Dali art are now in circulation, because people did something that looked Dali-ish, put it in front of him, he would sign it, boom, they would be able to get money.
So there's actually paintings and art out there that don't really belong to him or not really made by him.
Correct.
But
That have in some way his signature, which endorse them. 15,000 according to the source I saw. I don't know how
That's a
valid that
lot.
is. In 1988, he had a heart attack, heart failure, and that predicted shortly after, on the 23rd of January 1989, at the age of 84, his heart failed for good, and he died. His dying wish was to have his body resting in a tomb next to Gala's, his one love. And what he wanted was there to be a hole, so the tombs placed together, but a hole between the two, so they could posthumously hold hands together in the afterlife. But
It's kind of cute.
But the mayor of Figueres at the time, in 1989, he said that, apparently Dali had given him permission to move his body to the Figueres Dali Art Museum and exhibition, where it currently rests, which was his former home. So Dali did not get his dying wish to be laid next to Gala. Nobody knows if this was accurate, but it seems contrary to what his last wish would have been. And it certainly made Figueres a more popular town with regards to tourism, and therefore you can understand why a mayor would see a commercial interest in doing that.
yeah.
So,
Wow.
and guys, that's the story of Salvador Dali.
He had his good years. I'm sure he had.
The guy partied hard. The guy
This
spent
guy.
mad stacks, bro. But he also did jump on and ejaculate on a woman without her consent. So,
Yeah, that is true.
And other
Make of him
weird
what you will.
stuff.
no doubt a controversial figure, one that we should maybe not look at and model ourselves on. Haha, model, get it? 100%. But
Yeah.
an incredible figure in the world of contemporary art, and we would not be where we are in the modern art scene without his invaluable contribution to surrealism, to modern art, to cubism, and all the rest of it. So Salvador Dali, we honour you, not necessarily for everything you did, but for your fascinating life in this podcast, and we hope it's been an interesting episode. Guys, have you enjoyed yourself?
Of course.
Very
indeed.
much so.
We learned some new stuff.
Yes.
It's always good.
Thank you very much for coming. We appreciate it. We will be back to speaking to Silvano and Mystique next episode, but I'd like to thank you for your contribution. You can come back anytime you like.
I wanted to ask this. Can we come back or?
Well-
I really enjoyed it. It's my first podcast ever. It was a good one, I guess.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Well, any special topics you know more about Ilvi, anything else you've got incredible knowledge of, about Spain, let me know and we can do another episode.
Maybe.
Fantastic.
All in for this.
Thank you very much for listening, guys. This has been Hispanophiles. We will see you very, very soon.
Adios.
Adios.